The United States is actually below average. I find that rather shocking. Experts tell us that women don't really wield power until they are at that 30% goal. So if you wonder why there isn't enough child care funding, why education is such a low priority, why violence against women still isn't taken seriously as it should, even though we passed the Violence Against Women Act in the United States, which has made a huge difference, it certainly is not taken seriously around the world. While the glass ceiling is still strong, I authored or worked with the GAO on two important reports on the glass ceiling. One looked at 20 years of women in employment and saw there was a 40% gap between men and women. After you factored in reasons why there is the gap, having children, taking care of elderly parents, other gaps in employment, there was still a 20% unexplained gap between men and women, and it is persistent to this day. It is really persistent, and I call it discrimination. Also, I looked at women these are on my website, you can look at them, looked at women in management, and looked at 10 areas that employed 75% of the women in America. And it showed that because of the women's movement, the labor movement, all of you in this room that have worked so hard for equality, men and women will enter the door of employment at the same rate. We've achieved that. But 5 years out, when they start promoting into management, the gap starts. And in some areas, the gap is 18 percentage points, which is outlandish. So we still have to do a lot about that permanent glass ceiling here in our own country. And why isn't there equal pay for equal work? Why we haven't passed the Women's Equality Amendment? Think about how few women there are in Congress fighting for your rights, along with everything else we fight for in our country. And think about the fact that most of the world has ratified the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, but the United States has not. Believe me, 186 countries that have ratified CEDAW, 186 countries are not wrong. We are the only Western country in the world that has not ratified CEDAW, and that puts us in the company of the enlightened nations of Somalia, Sudan, and Iran. This is a national disgrace. If you ever wonder why the rest of the world doesn't take us seriously when we talk about human rights, just think about that. CEDAW has never even come up to a vote on the floor of the United States Senate. And CEDAW is fairly straightforward. When I first came to Congress and I saw this, I said, what's in CEDAW that is holding it back? I said, it's got to be choice. It's not, which is still to this day controversial, and I'm very strongly pro-choice. It's not. Choice is never mentioned. That is not part of it. That is off the table. CEDAW mandates that governments change or eradicate discriminatory laws, customs, and practices, and that they take positive steps to ensure the full development and advancement of women and their equal enjoyment of human rights. How threatening is that? Why haven't we ratified it? Articles 2, 5, 11, 12, and 16 of the Convention requires countries to act to protect women against violence of any kind occurring within the family, at the workplace, or in any other area of social life. The social and economic cost of violence against women are enormous and have ripple effects throughout the society. Women may suffer isolation, inability to work, loss of wages, and lack of participation in regular activities, including caring for themselves and their children. Why is the United States so reticent when 186 countries have ratified it? After all, the United States is already substantially in compliance with CEDAW. We comply with it and agree with its fundamental principles of equality and non-discrimination. Those who argue against ratification suggest that it would have an impact on the abortion issue, which of course we know is ridiculous, that it would require that women be drafted, again, ridiculous, that it would require the decriminalization of prostitution. But CEDAW does not include any provisions regarding abortion, women in the military, or prostitution. It does not. It doesn't prevent same-sex schools. It's not against Mother's Day, and it doesn't require unisex bathrooms. In fact, the treaty is non-self-executing. This is important when you talk about CEDAW, which means that any legislation that the U.S. might adopt to comply with the treaty would have to go through the normal congressional approval process. But it might be interpreted by U.S. courts to require strict scrutiny in claims of sex discrimination, the same standard as racial discrimination, which is in the Constitution, women are not, the standard that would apply if we had an Equal Rights Amendment in the Constitution. And I believe we should have strict scrutiny. We're half the population. Why shouldn't we have strict scrutiny on any discriminatory actions? And that's why opposition and opponents are so resistant, is the strict scrutiny issue. In countries that have adopted CEDAW, women have used it as a lobbying tool to pressure the governments to repeal repressive legislation and provide equal opportunities for women. CEDAW has proved invaluable in addressing the effects of discrimination, which include violence against women, trafficking for both labor and sex, poverty, lack of protections, along with the denial of inheritance, property rights, and access to credit. Globally, violent acts committed against women take many forms, including rape, domestic violence, honor killings, acid burnings, female genital mutilation, stoning, dowry deaths, sexual slavery, and other forms of abuse and exploitation. The rape of women has been used as a tool of terrorism and ethnic cleansing in conflicts in Bosnia, Rwanda, and other war-torn nations. CEDAW has given advocates a lever to call for an end to these outrageous practices. CEDAW has fostered development of domestic violence laws in Turkey, Nepal, South Africa, Colombia, and the Republic of Korea, and anti-trafficking laws in the Ukraine and Moldova. Good for CEDAW. In Uganda, campaigns against domestic violence began receiving state funding after the country ratified CEDAW in 1985. In India, a bill was passed in 2002 that adds civil remedies such as protection orders and monetary compensation to pre-existing criminal provisions on domestic violence. And there are many other examples around the world. But our refusal to ratify CEDAW actually hinders the enforcement of the treaty, as well as hampering our position as a world leader on human rights. I have repeatedly called for hearings in the Senate, but we have had hearings before. I even testified at a hearing that was held in 2002, the last time we had a hearing on CEDAW before now Vice President Biden. In my testimony, I said that ratification would be a sign that the U.S. government is committed to promoting and protecting equality of opportunity for its own citizens, and it would set the stage for U.S. leadership in ensuring that women are fairly treated here and around the world. With Democrats in control of the House and the Senate, and I can't tell you how it's exciting to see a woman speaker in the United States Congress. So it seems that we have a golden opportunity to move forward and enact this important law. It sends a signal that we are not serious about women's rights. And I would say that in a global economy, another important reason is we are competing, my kids are competing with all the countries of the world, even emerging countries that we may not even know their names yet. And it's much more difficult than the competition that I faced in school, and we can't afford not to have half our population absolutely empowered to have their ultimate potential reached. I hope that the Senate will move forward with ratification. Our failure to ratify this treaty is a complete, total embarrassment. But our failure in this area should not inhibit our efforts to push the goalpost further. We must work together to gain equality at every level of society, and when we achieve it, it will be because of the hard work of women and like-minded men around the world who work together to end discrimination, to end to help increase literacy, to end violence against women, to eliminate barriers to women's achievement. Women and like-minded men, like those in this room, who support the good work being done by UNIFEM and the NCRW. I'm so proud to present you with a congressional record tribute that becomes part of the history of this nation so that future generations can read about the good work of UNIFEM and in our NCRW and the organizations that support it. But before I make that presentation, I congratulate all the honorees. I was here for that presentation, and thank you for all the hard work. And since we are at the Hunter and the Eleanor Legacy and Institute is part of it, I have to close with a quote from the great Eleanor Roosevelt, who used to say, "It's up to the women." So it is truly up to us if we care about women's equality in this country. We're the only ones who are going to do something about it. And if we care about women's equality internationally, we're the only ones who are going to do something about it. So it is up to us. So in sisterhood and unity and all good faith for the future, you are the future. Let's get together, pass CEDAW, and pass the Women's Equality Amendment. These two items can help empower women in our own country and around the world. Thank you for what you do every day. It is my absolute thrill to be with you. I'm on your team. Let me know what I can do to support all of your efforts. And thank you and your leadership for your hard work.